Hello, my name is Ray Lopez, and I am your City Council representative for District 6. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the program today. I'm very excited to have as our guest today Dr. Thomas Schleckler, Director of Metro Health, and Mark Castro, Assistant Director of Development Services. Now I'd like to welcome to the show our first guest, Mark Castro. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I tell you, I think we've had an opportunity to talk about a lot of different things over the course of the past couple of years that I've been on council, and I can never seem to get what it is that you do other than virtually anything we ask you to do. And I think a lot of folks are appreciative of the kind of work that Shirley Code does. Many people don't understand though exactly what your role is. Can we kind of start off with you explaining a little bit about the role of your department and what it is that you guys do?
Sure. The mission of Development Services is to partner with our community to build and maintain a safer San Antonio. And the way code enforcement goes about doing that is that we enforce quality of life type codes. So minimum property maintenance, dangerous structures. We also deal with zoning, building without a permit. We have the biggest impact when we deal with the grime. I like to often say where there's grime, there's crime. And so we try to help work with the community to eradicate the grime. We do that through a number of different programs, through reactive programs where people can call in and we'll go out and investigate a complaint. We also have some proactive programs via permitting and focusing on special areas across the city.
Now, I know that recently at council we approved a lot of changes. I think you guys have gone through a lot of reassessing of what and how and the kinds of things that are the right things to do, particularly, as you said, for quality of life issues. How have some of these code changes affected the community, and talk a little bit about why did that all happen?
Sure, there's been quite a few changes. Most recently, we actually merged with Development Services, and that's been especially important in a number of fronts. One, we've become better experts at enforcing zoning, so we're working very closely with the zoning subject matter experts. We've also done a better job of enforcing work without a permit, and that's helped us a lot to deal with dilapidated structures. We want to make sure people are building with the permit and that their building is up to code. We've also re-engineered the way that we enforce minimum property maintenance codes. Back in May of last year, Council approved a new Building Standards Board. That's a 14-member citizen board that replaced a city-staffed board. This new Building Standards Board will address dangerous structures, so we will take properties before the board, recommend demolition or repair, and then it will also hear minimum property maintenance code violations, which previously were heard in municipal court. So we've effectively decriminalized code violations and are hoping to actually expedite the hearing of cases now that these code cases don't have to compete with tens of thousands of traffic tickets to go before a municipal court judge. And it's also increased the transparency of code enforcement that now that we have a citizen board dealing with these issues. And we're really pleased with the way that's been going since it went into effect January 1st.
Good. Well, I know that your responsibilities are, of course, throughout the entire city. And I would imagine that the majority of the folks watching this show from time to time are more interested about what happens in District 6, although I think we're all interested in what happens across the city. Tell me a little bit about the resources that are actually deployed in District 6 and how that you think is going to make a difference going forward.
Sure. We have 7 field units across the city, and they cross council districts.
Right.
Specifically for Council District 6, we have 4 code enforcement officers that deal with minimum property maintenance. We also have 1 dangerous premise officer that deals with substandard structures. We also then have a couple of special units. We have a zoning team, and so there's an officer that covers the Council District 6 area. And then we have a permitting program team. They deal with our permit programs for metal recyclers, for motor vehicle recyclers, scrap tire facilities. And so there's another officer that's covering District 6 for that. So if I do my math right, that's 4, 5, about 7 that are dedicated to Council District 6 area. And that it helps to have individuals dedicated to certain areas to work with neighborhood associations. They become familiar with the problems, familiar with the residents. The residents feel a level of comfort knowing their code officer. We try not to switch them around and change them too much. We do often hear from residents saying, no, I don't want to lose my code officer.
I love them. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So that close relationship and sticking to a neighborhood, I think, is real helpful. And also, the fact that we've got some specialization there also helps,
Right.
so that you've got folks that are dedicated to enforcing zoning and permitting and those types of things.
Well, I got to tell you that virtually every HOA association meeting that I go to, there's a code officer, a safe officer, and a handful of other city staffers there to kind of deliver messages. The ones that truly get as they say, where the rubber meets the road and get into the what I'm doing for you right now, really is the safe officers and the code officers are, I mean, just on top of it. And I think the community truly does love them because they're intimate with their neighborhoods. And it makes a tremendous difference. What would you say are like the top, and I won't ask you for the top 10, but the top handful of typical, or the ones that get the most complaints, would you say?
Sure. In Council District 6, the biggest violation are bandit signs. So bandit signs are signs that are put on telephone poles or city
I would have never
signs.
guessed that.
And that's actually a theme across the city, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Then there's also quite a few issues with trash and debris or late brush set out. So we want to make sure that residents know not to put their brush or their bulky items out too soon, or leave them out if they've forgotten to put them out in time for our solid waste management department to pick them up. We also have issues with people blocking the right-of-way or the sidewalk. I've looked at, it seems like there's on the west side a lot of subdivisions that were built with relatively small driveways, and people try to have more than one car, and sometimes they'll block the sidewalk. That seems to be a recurring theme. So we want to make sure that residents know that you cannot block the sidewalk with your vehicle. You need to park it on the street or make sure it fits on the driveway.
Right, and I think those are the little nuances that at the HOA meetings, those kinds of discussions happen, because oftentimes I know we'll go out there with a code enforcement officer, and the person that lodged the complaint is also violating it. Perhaps their car's kind of parked blocking the sidewalk, and they go like, well, I didn't realize that was wrong. Yeah. So it really is a matter of just communicating, letting people know, and really letting them know why the ordinance is there, so that people can have a safer environment, as you said in the very beginning. I mean, improving the quality of life.
Correct.
I know you guys are working on a lot of new initiatives for 2012 and really in going forward. And in particular, if you can talk a little bit about what some of those code enforcement things that you're doing as it relates to graffiti, because that's another one of those, it just seems to never go away. Yeah. We keep chasing it, we keep on making it better, but it never is completely eradicated. What are some of the things that you're doing around graffiti abatement and the like, from a code perspective?
Yeah, we're really trying to partner with the community more. So we created a new Ranger volunteer program. It has two components, a code ranger and a graffiti ranger. The Graffiti Ranger program is a program that provides more resources for residents. So you would have access to a vehicle, supplies, equipment, and staff. We've actually got 2 vehicles dedicated to this program. So those that are interested can come to an orientation and learn about the program. In fact, we have an orientation this coming Monday at 6 o'clock at 1400 South Florida's. That's our division's headquarters. And learn about the program. There is an application you're required to fill out. But once you become part of the program, you have access to this vehicle. You can take it out to your neighborhood. It's fully equipped to paint over graffiti. We can assign you to a special project. We want to leverage those that are interested, have the time and the commitment to help eradicate graffiti, because like you said, we're constantly chasing our tails on this. It comes up, we paint over it, and it comes up again, and we just need to be diligent. And we don't have all the money in the world to throw at this problem, so we're trying to work with residents to get them more involved and give them more resources.
Yeah, it is a major problem. I forget the exact number, but I know it's over $1 million a year that the city uses, and that's in direct expense on graffiti abatement. That's not counting the volunteer hours, the
Correct.
Expense and time that private citizens go through to eradicate it, because it is one of those things that people just don't feel that the city is doing enough. And I try to tell them we're doing everything we possibly can, but really the only way to really make the difference is to have initiatives with the community. I mean, it's our community, right?
Exactly.
Collectively, ours, theirs, everybody's community. We've got to collectively, go out there and do those kinds of things. And I think that's really the only, I think people are beginning to understand and appreciate that. Can you, oftentimes we'll get calls, I'm sure, and they say, well, can you come and clean up this graffiti? And it turns out that it's not on city property. I mean, what happens whenever it is on property or on somebody's property that we really aren't supposed to go out there and abate?
Sure. That's a great question. If it's on city property, then we'll go ahead and address it or work with the partner department to address it. For example, if it's in the parks or on traffic signs. If it's on utility partner infrastructure, so Time Warner or CPS Energy or SAWS infrastructure, we work closely with them to eradicate that. And sometimes we'll actually address it, but they would prefer to address it themselves. If it's on private property, our current ordinance really is dictated by state law, only allows us to require property owners to abate graffiti if the property is vacant, there's nobody occupying it, or if it's a tenant-occupied structure. And if that's the case, we'll go out and actually make an effort to see if we can paint over the graffiti for the tenant or the property owner if it's a vacant structure. If it's an owner-occupied home or if it's a business in place, whether they're renting or they own the building, we actually cannot require them by state law to paint over the graffiti. We often ask them if we can, and we get out there and try to paint over the graffiti. But those are some of the subtleties when it comes to the enforcement authority that we have.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, I guess some lines that we just as a city can't cross, but the public definitely expects us to do all of that. And I know that over the course of the last year and a half, we've been trying to establish those links with the other agencies.
Correct.
Don't they also have some requirements from the state? I mean, I'm talking about, for example, Union Pacific, maybe TxDOT, and other agencies that they also need to have an abatement plan in place. And so what would be the best advice you could give to the public on reporting something when you're not sure what agency it's supposed to be reported
We actually
to?
want to serve as sort of the hub for those complaints because we think it's easier for the citizens to have one number to call. We have a number 207-BUFF. That's a technical graffiti term. Or BUFF is 2833. If you call that number and it turns out to be CPS Energy or TxDOT property, we will work with our partners and have them get out there and abate the graffiti. We will not go up onto, for example, a sign over a highway. We leave that up to TxDOT. But if they have any doubt, they can call 207-BUFF.
Good. Okay. Well, that really does help because I know that folks don't want to necessarily sit there and say, let me see, that's a railroad train track. I need to call here. They need to have one place to go, and it makes it simple for them.
Right.
And I think it's important that they know we're willing to serve as that conduit.
Absolutely.
And we'll get to get to the bottom of it. And I guess on a different show, you can tell me why it's called Buff and what's the inside story on that. But for now, that kind of concludes this segment. So, and we'll be right back, as a matter of fact, after a short break to talk to Dr. Schlinkler on our next segment. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned.
Did you know that getting up and getting active for just 60 minutes a day is all it takes to help you get stronger, look better, and feel great?
Or that fresh fruits and veggies aren't just healthier and crunchier, they can taste better too?
Eating better and getting more active is easier than you think.
Yeah! Keep watching for some fun and easy ways to discover the magic of healthy living in your life.
America.
Let's get healthy together!
Buenas noches. ¿Es usted la madre de Javier Rivera?
Sí, soy yo.
Lamento informarle que su hijo acaba de fallecer en un choque. Sus amigos dicen que venía manejando completamente borracho. Que su hijo acaba de fallecer en un choque. Sus amigos dicen que venía manejando después de tomar unas copas.
El efecto es el mismo. Manejar medio tomado es igual que manejar borracho.
Welcome back to our program. I'm your host, District 6 Councilman Ray Lopez. We're going to talk to Dr. Thomas Schlinkler, who has just joined us here in San Antonio not very many months ago, but it feels like he knows his way around. I think he'll tell us a little bit more about that. And let me start with asking you about a really important program, Doctor. I know that it's something that's been top of mind for a lot of folks, not only here in San Antonio, at the state, but even at the national level, and that's the CPPW grant that recently we were able to kind of get our hands on. Can you tell us a little bit about the grant and why and what and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. CPPW stands for Communities Putting Prevention to Work, and it's all about preventing illness and creating a healthier community. And it started about 3 years ago when the Obama administration first came in and created a big pot of stimulus funding. And some of this was translated into the area of public health. And San Antonio was fortunate enough to get almost $16 million to fund programs that in general are directed against obesity, which is a big problem we have here in San Antonio, not unlike the rest of the United States, but in some respects a little bit worse. So over the past 2 years, that $16 million has been expended on a large menu of different creative, innovative activities and projects and capital improvements that I think's made a big difference here.
Well, no, you're right. I think it has made a big difference, and it has also, I think, underscored some of the issues and problems that we do have in this community that we need to address. And I think people want to address that. Obesity certainly being one of them, and all of the associated illnesses, whether it's diabetes or just all the other unhealthy, situations that we wind up putting ourselves in because we haven't been watching what we eat and maybe getting to the point where, and I think I'm as guilty as the next guy, of not eating correctly. My wife always argues with me about portions. Be careful what you're eating, how much you're eating. What are some of the large initiatives here in San Antonio that the grant's been able to provide us that you think are worthy of quick mention here?
Well, some of them have been actual capital improvements to our parks, to our public libraries and schools, housing, to promote physical activity. So with this money, we've established walking and jogging trails at schools and public housing and libraries, and have come up with this fascinating concept of exercise your mind and your body at the same time, which the library supports, and it really makes a lot of sense. We've put physical activity equipment in dozens of parks locally, so that if you see this bright green kind of levers and pulleys and mechanical stuff in local parks, that's from this, and people are using that like mad. We've promoted bicycling to a large extent, and so now we have rental bicycles that are available throughout the center part of San Antonio. So there have been those kinds of capital improvements, plus a lot of innovative programming, because like the movie says, if you build it, they will come. Not really true. I mean, you can build it and people may not come to it. There has to be motivation and organization and orientation from people to use it. So that's the other part of it, and that I think is responding to some really interesting programs.
Yeah, I think you're right. You talked a little bit about, as you're talking about the bicycle programs, and of course we have the B-Cycle program here in the downtown area. I think that's really working well, and we're learning a lot about, what are the bicyclists, the folks that are willing to get on a bicycle, needing to be incented to do that. And here in San Antonio, certainly in our summers are a little warm. So going from one meeting to another on a bicycle may not be the most practical thing. May be okay for you, but the people you're going to be with may not appreciate it as much, right? Because we have a tendency of having hot summers here. But I know that seems to be working out well. We're learning how that program could be made more attractive for people to use it. And I think that's going to be real beneficial, and I think it'll continue to grow. The other one just happened recently was Ciclovia. Tell us a little bit about the program and its successes, and really what are some of the objectives and goals? Are we meeting them?
Well, Ciclovia so far, I think, has been a smashing success. We just had our second Ciclovia event last Sunday, and that is where an entire stretch of Broadway from just north of downtown almost to the Whitty Museum is closed down to car traffic, and people are invited to come out and bicycle or rollerblade or jog or run or do anything you want to do that doesn't involve a motor and just have fun. And the first time we did it, which was last October, on a Sunday, it drew 15,000 people, and that was pretty encouraging because it was the first time. And then at this second latest event, as we were building up to it, at one of our press conferences, the mayor says, I predict we're going to double it. We're going to have 30,000 people there. And in fact, he guessed low because we had 40,000 people.
I remember the number,
yeah. At Ciclovia last Sunday, and it was just a blast. People having fun in new ways. And in addition to the street, on each side of the street, they had different kinds of physical activity. They had martial arts, they had Zumba, they had volleyball, they had this one activity where you had to pick up and flip these giant truck tires, which looked like a lot of fun. I didn't try it. And so it kind of changes people's minds about how they can have fun in a healthy way and exercise and not even know they're exercising.
And before you know it, you're going to be healthy, right?
That's right. That's our aim.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I know that you said this is our second annual. Will the city continue to do these, or will we partner with other organizations? How's that going to organizationally move forward?
Right. Well, important question. I think a very secure handoff has been made from the city and Metro Health to the YMCA. A natural partner in this regard. They have embraced it. The next Ciclovia, which will be in the fall, and all the subsequent ones will be run and organized by the YMCA, including raising funds, because it costs a bit of money to do it. But in many ways, they're the perfect organization to do it. They're all about healthy living, and they're very community-oriented, and they've been great partners so far, so we are very confident it's going to continue and grow.
Yeah, I think it's a natural partnership, just like you said earlier. Now, I suspect that there'll be a lot of media campaigns and promoting it. Tell me a little bit about what some of the plans there are.
Well, I think there will be, colorful, enticing media that builds up to each event. One twist that was added to the latest one is it's become a pre-fiesta event, and the San Antonio Fiesta folks have embraced it as part of their process. So I think it will take on more and more of a cultural tradition, just like Fiesta has done in San Antonio. And then I think the activities along the route will probably grow and blossom. I'm looking for a lot more music in the future, and a lot more kind of innovative physical things you can do.
Right. Well, now let me kind of connect the dots here. We were talking about the grant, and then we've talked about several of the activities, and I suspect that Ciclovia and all these others are they part of that whole grant process?
Yes, every single one was funded and organized initially by the health department here, and we assembled a wonderful staff that has been working hard on this. Many of whom will be leaving to go on to other things as the funding disappears, but they've left behind a real legacy.
So it's a 2-year program, I believe, a 2-year grant.
Yep.
And then moving forward, how do you envision the funding and the support for it?
Well, some of it, much of it is already in place. The walking trails, the physical equipment, the salad bars in the school, et cetera, that's already there and being used. Some of the programmatic activity has been taken over by parks in San Antonio and by housing. We have fitness in the park programs where you can, do exercises and Zumba and other things in an organized way. The parks are going to continue that forward. YMCA with Ciclovia. I think there is going to be some funding that's required, but hopefully the business community will get behind it. And especially those businesses that are concerned about their own workforce, and a lot of them are now, and they're investing in healthier employees. I think they're going to support this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I guess everybody always wants to know, so how do you know if you succeeded? What do you think we should be looking for, as evidence that this was a good investment, which I think we all believe it is, but what would be some of the telltale signs, I guess, that we've actually, that the CCPW initiative was success here in San Antonio?
Well, we're not the only community that has this problem. And in fact, the CDC uses 3 measures that I think are very good and that we will be using here going forward. One is actually diagnosed diabetes, in that individuals who are at risk for diabetes, who do not maintain good control over their eating and their exercise and their weight, will go on to develop real diabetes that requires medication and can lead to all sorts of problems. So the diagnosis of diabetes is kind of a very bad line to cross. So that one measure is important. A second one is just the percentage of people who are overweight by a standard criteria, and that can be measured in a number of different ways, but one of the best, I think, is the school-based measurements of the same classes year after year to find out if things are going in the right direction. And then the third measure that the CDC uses is lack of physical activity, how often per week you exercise or don't, and that's done by telephone survey. But I think that's a key measure.
Yeah. I think all of those combined, ultimately, and as we've talked several times, will add to a healthy quality of life for San Antonio. And that's really, after it's all said and done, is the measurement that we want to use.
Yeah.
I know we don't have much time left on the show, but I wanted you to talk for just a second, if you will. I know that the First Lady has come out with her initiative, the Let's Move initiative, and it really incorporates an awful lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things that it incorporated, and I think it's worth repeating or to kind of underline, the initiatives, the nutrition initiatives in the schools and the salad bars. Can you talk just a little bit more about that and how we're able to move that forward?
Sure. Well, San Antonio's made its mark on improving nutrition. We've put salad bars in a couple hundred schools locally. We've trained school dietitians on how to promote healthy eating among kids, which every parent knows is a challenge. And we also have our nationally known now Por Vida program, where we work with restaurants so that a restaurant will be able to offer at least a few healthy, heart-friendly items on their menu, and that's received national attention. And I think even Michelle Obama knows about that one.
I think she does, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion about it and the initiatives that have been here in San Antonio. And quite honestly, I'd like to invite you to come back and talk a little bit more about specifically that program, because I think it's such a major impact to our community, to our kids, and ultimately to our quality of life. So if you'll accept the invitation, we'll bring you back and we'll talk more about it.
I promise. I'd love to.
Good. Well, thank you for tuning in. I'd like to thank once again my guest for the time they provided for us today. And until next time, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm your City Councilman Ray Lopez, District 6. Thank you.
Did you know that getting up and getting active for just 60 minutes a day is all it takes to help you get stronger, look better, and feel great?
Or that fresh fruits and veggies aren't just healthier and crunchier, they can taste better too?
Eating better and getting more active is easier than you think.
Yeah! Keep watching for some fun and easy ways to discover the magic of healthy living in your life.
America.
Let's get healthy together!